Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is the late review of Mad Max. I played it on the Xbox One. As far as the story goes, it's a little generic and a little nonsensical, but hey, it's kind of hard to find a game that isn't a little generic or a little nonsensical anymore. That's not me talking crap about the story, because I actually enjoyed it. At the beginning, right away, Max gets jacked, he gets wrecked and demolished, and his car gets stolen. Fortunately for him, he finds Chum Bucket, who offers to build him a new car. The car is the Magnum Opus. And then Chum Bucket decides to follow you around as well. He also, for whatever reason, thinks Max is a saint, so he's clearly insane. Throughout the game, you meet, help, and or kill quite a few different characters, some very interesting, some not so interesting, but it's a pretty good mix. I will say I wish the story could have been more robust because quite frankly, the world was pretty darn interesting. Think Mad Max Fury Road, that had a really interesting world. Maybe not the most in-depth story there either, but nonetheless, interesting world, and it would have been cool to get to delve deeper into the world. The sound in this game has its ups and downs. For the most part, the sound is really good, and the voice work is excellent, which, as I always say, helps sell the story. The actors did a great job going with this script, which says some really weird crap because it's in the future and they don't have a full comprehension of the English language anymore. But the down parts of the sound is definitely when there's missing sound effects, which is really confusing at times. Also, the sound effects aren't always synced up to what you're seeing on screen. Watched him kick open a door, but I heard the door get kicked open 5 seconds before that. I will say the voiceover work generally matches up with the characters, but it's other sound effects that don't. Along with the missing sound effects, there were also sound effects that happened with no reason whatsoever, like I suddenly heard a dust storm when there was no dust storm. It was kind of weird. Also, this game has minimal music, bordering on no music, which can get really boring when you're taking those long drives through the wasteland and there is nothing to listen to besides the revving of your engine. As for gameplay and controls, it's very similar to the Batman Arkham series or Shadow of Mordor. Combat system and exploration and side missions, all of that, it's very much like those. The combat is a lot like those, but unfortunately it feels like a crappy knockoff because it's nowhere near as good. And that probably has a little bit to do with the fact that the controls in this game are fairly sloppy. And when you need really precise controls for combat, sloppy controls are obviously a bad thing. And by sloppy, I mean you'll press a button and the character does not react quickly enough, or may not react at all to your button press, which can lead to all sorts of problems. That's not the only time the controls feel sloppy. When you're just running around on foot, your character's movements can sometimes be really excellent, and other times you end up falling down or off a ledge that you shouldn't have because, well, you didn't go in that direction. Also, while driving, the controls could be better. They're not always as responsive as I'd like. In general, I think these controls just feel sloppy for combat as well as maneuverability, simply because they're not as responsive as controls should be in a game like this. A AAA title should not be like this. The story's not super long. It probably took me less than 20 hours to actually finish the story on its own. I did dick around with some of the other stuff, the side quests and whatnot, which there are plenty of things to do on the side, although I will say, not unlike Shadow of Mordor or Batman Arkham Knight, they're a little repetitive. There's also all sorts of RPG elements ranging from leveling up Max, upgrading Max, and upgrading the Magnum Opus, and leveling up or upgrading Max, those are awesome. Upgrading the Magnum Opus didn't seem to do that much to improve the vehicle. I honestly felt like I was still as slow as ever and weak as ever when I was in the vehicle. It was kind of disappointing. Also, this may sound a little odd, but the developers overused the A button. You used it to pick things up, put them down, interact with the environment, etc., etc. The problem with this is, when you pick up a melee weapon and you're trying to climb up a ladder next, you may end up dropping your melee weapon because it's the same button as climb the ladder. Also, they used the A button in combat to perform kills, which didn't always work because, like I said, the controls were not as responsive as they needed to be. And this game suffers from the enemy's vehicles constantly being faster than yours no matter how much you work on yours, which is obnoxious because if you steal an enemy vehicle, it's nowhere near as fast as the Magnum Opus when you're driving it. Graphically, I can sum this game up as a beautiful mess. The environments, the characters, the sunrises and sunsets, I'm pointing those out because they were beautiful. All of those things looked quite beautiful. But the mess part comes with all the graphical glitches I ran into. Starting with things passing through things, like a sandstorm passing through a wall that was not a stronghold wall, because that's the only thing that seems to protect you from those. But nonetheless, I could see this dust being blown through the wall, despite the fact it should have been stopping it. Also, it's cool that you could see your breath when it was cold. It is not so cool when you can see those white puffs passing directly through Max's chest. There was also a problem where I could see like the wire framework underneath the textures. I could see that for about 20 minutes. It was really, really obnoxious. There were also some times where there was some graphics tearing, which was annoying as well. The other annoying thing was things disappearing and reappearing, like the road, the lampposts, the Outcrier's torso during a cutscene. That was weird, man. It just kept flickering in and out of existence. There are also certain objects in the environment that will they will teleport back and forth, and it's really weird. They kind of flicker from one place to another, and then they'll finally settle, but that happened to me a number of times. All of these graphical glitches, they happened to me numerous times throughout the playthrough. That's not okay. One thing I will say that is awesome about these graphics is the damage modeling on Max's face. The cuts and bruises look fantastic. They really look realistic, quite frankly, and I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so a few other complaints to go along with my laundry list of complaints. The jumping in this game looks really, really stupid. He jumps pathetically. I'm not asking for crazy sci-fi 15-foot in the air jumps, but something more than a little hop, that would be very nice. The load times in this game, they're kind of painful. After I die, you have to wait for at least a minute, which I know that's really not that long, but it takes you out of the moment. And my final complaint is not really a small complaint, it's the camera in this game. This is a game that has an awful camera. The camera is actually your biggest enemy in the game. It gets way too close up on Max while driving and while in hand-to-hand combat. There were numerous times where I got beaten to death simply because I couldn't see that there was an enemy that was about to attack me. Had I been able to see them, I would have been able to counter them. That's pretty shitty, and it gets really old. Honestly, that's probably my biggest complaint with the entirety of the game. To wrap this game up, it's a cool concept in a cool world, but it was very poorly executed and ends up being mediocre. It's got a bunch of small problems that just chip away at the overall quality of the game and knock it down. I won't say that it's total crap, but I'm definitely not going to say it's one of the best games I've ever played. Am I sad that I own this game? No. Am I sad that I paid full price for this game? Yes. This game is worth buying if it's on sale for like $20 or $30 less than full price. So in the comments below, why don't you let me know a game that you thought was worth playing, but definitely wasn't worth paying full price for. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, and if you like what I'm doing in general, subscribe. Have a good one.